have our last little section. Notice what's happening. Number 6. Notice that we're getting closer to the start again, but we're going to get down to 1 meter. So the last final step here is we are moving here to 1 meter. So number 6, we move 1 meter closer to the start in a time of 1 second. Okay? So in the end, this is where we end up being. So if I was to ask you what is our displacement would be we are only from start to finish, we are only 1 meter from the start. So that's our displacement, even though we went back and forth, and then back and back another way, and then back here. So our total displacement is 1 meter to the right of the start. Okay, so that's how you go about reading these things. You have to remember that this is position. So it's telling you where you are after a certain amount of time. Now, the final thing that we're going to do is we are going to take a look at what if we take the same graph, except this time I tell you that this is a velocity graph. So this is still going to be in seconds because the x-axis is always going to be your time. So when we take a look at position and velocity, it's always going to be time for the x-axis. But this is now going to be a graph of meters per second as the y-axis label. So it's telling us how fast we're going at every time or every second on this journey that I guess we're going to take. So there's a couple of things that you do need to know. There is positive and there is negative velocities. Okay, so our positive velocity is up here. Now, the one thing about a positive velocity is positive velocities have direction. That means we are moving to the right on the line. Okay, so positive velocities are always moving in a direction towards the right. Now, the negative velocities, let me put that down here. If we have a negative velocity, it also has a direction to it, and that means we're going to move to the left on this line. Okay, so there is one other thing that we're going to take into consideration, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. It's talking about whether we're going to be speeding up or slowing down, but we'll kind of get into that in just a moment. So let's first of all just kind of figure out what's going on. So take a look here. What is happening in part 1? So part 1 now, this is not position. This is velocity. So what are you doing? Well, notice that the velocity is going down. And notice that the velocity is getting higher. Here we have a zero velocity, and then we end up with a -4 velocity. So we are actually getting faster. So we are moving faster in a negative direction. So we are moving faster in a negative direction. Okay, so we're increasing our speed because notice we're going from here to here. So we don't exactly know our position. We just know that we are getting faster and faster and faster as we move this way. Okay, so what's happening is we're just getting faster and we're moving that way. Now, what you need to realize is when we get to part 2, part 2 does not mean we're staying in one spot. Part 2 means we have a constant velocity. So what that means is we are still moving in a negative direction, but we are moving this way at a constant speed. Okay, so for number 2, we are holding steady at a constant speed there until for what? 2 seconds. So this is, let's give it some time. So this will be a constant speed for 2 seconds, and we're getting faster in a negative direction for 1 second. Now, let's start adding in the other things. So let's go to part 3. Well, what's happening in part 3? Well, you need to take part 3 in 2 chunks, okay? So the first chunk goes up to this line, and everything for all of these graphs is always going to be based on getting to the x-axis. Notice, the velocities are negative. What that means is we are moving still up until 4 seconds. We are moving and we are slowing down, and we are moving towards where we kind of had started, you know, towards a speed of 0, okay? So this is going to be a speed of 0. So in part 3, we are slowing down in a negative direction for 1 second. And then in the middle of it, we hit 0. So what does that mean? Well, anytime you hit 0, at 0, you turn around, okay? And then now we start moving in a positive direction the other way. So for part 3, we turn around, and now we start moving and speeding up and moving in a positive direction for part 3. So the second half is a positive direction, which is back towards the start, and we speed up. Now, that's going to be all the way here to the end. So part 3 is kind of the weird part, okay? Part 3, we actually have a change in direction. So anytime you cross 0, you're going to have a change in direction. Now, for part 4, you still have a positive velocity. So that means we're still moving in this direction, but because it's going down, we are slowing down. So in part 4, we are slowing down and still moving to the right, okay? Simply because it's positive. And then we take a look at part 5. Because it's still positive, we are still moving that way. So for part 5, it is still moving in a positive direction, but because it's moving upwards, we are speeding up. Okay? And then our last final thing, step 6, we are still moving in a positive direction. So step 6, we are still moving there. So in 6, we are still moving in a positive direction. But because it's going down, we are slowing down. Okay? So notice the difference in the graphs. Okay? Notice the thing. With the velocity graph, we are always just kind of moving until we change direction, and then it all continues in one direction. Either we're speeding up or slowing down. With position, we're moving on other sides of the starting position. So both of these graphs put us in very, very different places in very, very different locations. Okay, so you always need to pay very close attention to whether you have a velocity graph or whether you have an acceleration graph. Now, I do want to put kind of something into play here. And the final thing that I want to talk about is this thing right here. We always talk about something speeding up or slowing down. So I want you to kind of think about what we're doing with that. So if you take a look here, you'll notice at the very top that the velocity, here's the sign for the velocity graph, but also notice that they also have the sign for the acceleration. Now remember, here's the thing. Velocity and acceleration are connected. This acceleration, is the slope of velocity. Okay? That's what acceleration is. Acceleration is the slope of velocity. So let's take a look and let's just see whether things are speeding up or slowing down on this graph. So take a look at a velocity graph. In order to do speeding up or slowing down, you do need a velocity graph. So please keep that into consideration. So now take a look here. Notice the velocity. In step 1, the velocity is negative because all the values are negative. These are negative values. Also notice the acceleration, the slope is a negative slope. So we have two negatives. We have negative values and we have negative slope. So this is speeding up. Okay? So on step 1, the particle is getting faster. Now, step 2, you're just going to say it's constant. Anytime you see that, it's just going to be constant. It is not speeding up or slowing down. But now, take a look right here. Tell me what the object is doing. Well, we have to take a look at the object in two different places. So first of all, look at all the velocity values. All your velocity values here are negative. But what is your acceleration? Acceleration is the slope of the line between here and here. It's positive. So what's it doing? This is slowing down. Now, look at this part. If we are taking a look right here, notice the velocity now is positive because all of the values are above this line. But tell me, what's happening to the acceleration? The acceleration is the slope of this graph. The slope of this graph is also positive. So this is speeding up from here to here. Okay, so this is how we go about figuring out, is the particle getting faster or is it slowing down? So in step 4, please note that in this case, the velocities are all positive. But what's happening with the slope of the line? The slope of the line is negative. So what is this object doing? We are slowing down. Well, in step 5, it's doing something different. Notice the velocities are all positive. But the acceleration, the slope of the line, is also positive. So when the signs are the same, it's speeding up. When the signs are different, it's slowing down. Okay? So that's the key thing. If you look at that table, anytime something is speeding up, the signs are the same. Anytime it's slowing down, the signs are different. So take a look at part 6. The velocity is still positive, but the acceleration, the slope of the line is negative, so this is slowing down. Okay? So that is the idea of position, velocity, and acceleration. I hope this works for you. I hope you have a conceptual understanding of what these things are, and best of luck to you. Please bring all of your stuff in tomorrow. Have a great day, and I will see you in the next video.